Have you ever asked yourself who you truly are when no one is watching? Not the version of yourself that appears in photos, stories, or conversations, but the self that exists quietly, unobserved, within the chambers of your mind and the rhythm of your daily life. In the modern world, this question has become more elusive than ever. Society teaches us to perform, to curate, to package our identities in ways that are digestible, appealing, and often approved by others. We exist in an era where visibility has been conflated with value, and the result is a subtle yet profound distortion of self-perception. Identity, in its purest form, is a lived experience. It is the interplay of thought, emotion, action, and reflection. It is forged in the quiet moments, in the decisions no one witnesses, in the consistency between who we are internally and how we act externally. Yet the modern environment offers countless distractions, tools, and incentives that encourage the opposite: fragmentation. Social media, cultural expectations, and constant comparison create an ecosystem in which identity becomes a performance, a version of self optimized for attention rather than authenticity. You may recognize this instinct in yourself. The small adjustments you make before posting a photo, the captions carefully chosen to convey the desired emotion, the subtle curation of a personal narrative. These choices, though seemingly harmless, accumulate over time. They form layers between your lived reality and your broadcasted reality. And when you begin to live more for the observer than for yourself, something profound is lost. The rawness of experience, the authenticity of emotion, the richness of imperfection. These begin to fade into curated fragments. Consider the psychological concept of the looking glass self, proposed by sociologist Charles Cooley. According to this idea, our self-concept is influenced by how we believe others perceive us. In other words, we begin to see ourselves through a mirror constructed by society. Every like, comment, and reaction subtly shapes how we think of ourselves. And while this feedback loop can provide connection and social cohesion, it can also distort our sense of self. When the majority of your identity is informed by others' approval, who are you really being? Are you living authentically, or are you merely performing a version of self designed to satisfy external expectations? But identity is not just a social construct. It is also a psychological landscape. Modern psychology tells us that humans naturally categorize themselves in various ways: roles, traits, values, and beliefs. These categories are flexible and dynamic. Yet in a world obsessed with measurement and comparison, they often become rigid. We define ourselves not only by who we are, but by who we are expected to be. The result is tension, a quiet dissonance that manifests as anxiety, dissatisfaction, or a sense of emptiness. You may feel it as an internal voice whispering, "Am I enough? Am I real? Or am I merely performing?" This dissonance is exacerbated by the culture of visibility. In past eras, identity was largely private, forged in small communities and personal reflection. Now, identity is externalized. Photos, stories, tweets, posts, they are all fragments of a projected self. And the act of projection changes the self itself. A moment observed by an audience is no longer experienced in pure immediacy. It is filtered, reshaped, and evaluated. What once belonged entirely to your consciousness now exists partially as a public artifact, open to interpretation, judgment, and comparison. And yet, there is hope in understanding this dynamic. Awareness of the illusion is the first step toward reclaiming authenticity. Recognizing the difference between performed self and authentic self allows us to create intentional spaces where identity is lived, not broadcasted. It allows us to ask, which parts of me are genuinely mine, and which are borrowed from expectation? Which actions, thoughts, and emotions belong to me intrinsically, and which exist primarily to maintain appearances or secure approval? To live authentically is not to reject society or connection. It is not a withdrawal from engagement. Rather, it is a deliberate calibration, a conscious alignment between internal truth and external action. Authenticity requires courage, the courage to feel without editing, to act without performative motives, to express without the compulsive need for validation. It is the quiet art of existing as yourself, in full, without apology or pretense. Imagine two individuals at a party. One seeks to impress, to be admired, to be seen favorably by all. Every gesture, every word is carefully calculated. The other participates differently. They engage, observe, and share selectively, guided by intrinsic inclination rather than external expectation. To an observer, the first may appear vibrant, magnetic, socially skilled. The second may appear reserved, understated, or even enigmatic. Yet, in terms of lived experience and self-consistency, the second often enjoys a deeper connection to themselves and the present moment. Their sense of identity is coherent and grounded, not contingent upon audience reception. The process of discovering authentic identity also involves reflection on the self in solitude. Many people fear being alone with their thoughts, but solitude is essential for cultivating coherence between inner and outer worlds. In solitude, distractions fade, social pressures dissipate, and the mind becomes a mirror for itself. You encounter patterns, contradictions, and truths that are often invisible in public life. Solitude is not merely isolation. It is an apprenticeship in understanding oneself, a laboratory for authenticity. Another crucial insight comes from the study of social comparison. Research consistently shows that people who engage excessively in comparison, especially through digital media, experience lower self-esteem and higher anxiety. The constant parade of others' curated lives creates a distorted baseline of normalcy and achievement. We begin to judge ourselves not by our own standards, but by the illusory metrics of someone else's highlight reel. Here again lies the paradox. The very platforms designed to connect us often undermine the integrity of our self-concept, replacing internal benchmarks with external noise. Philosophically, this tension reflects an ancient dilemma, the conflict between the self as it is and the self as it is perceived. In Plato's writings, the concept of self-knowledge was central to the pursuit of a virtuous and fulfilled life. To know oneself was to discern the eternal truths within, to see beyond appearances, and to cultivate harmony between reason, emotion, and action. In a modern context, Plato's wisdom resonates. When external validation dominates our consciousness, we obscure our understanding of what is real, what is valuable, and what is authentically ours. Consider the role of storytelling in identity formation. Every person constructs narratives to make sense of their lives, often weaving together memories, intentions, and aspirations. These narratives are inherently selective, emphasizing certain experiences while downplaying others. In a society dominated by broadcasted life, the narrative often shifts outward. Our stories are curated not just for coherence, but for consumption. In this process, identity can become performative, a product designed to meet expectation rather than a reflection of inner truth. Yet, there are strategies to navigate this illusion. One is mindful engagement. Observe your thoughts and behaviors. When are you acting from intrinsic motivation, and when are you performing for others? Another is intentional sharing. Choose deliberately what to expose and what to keep private, understanding that not all aspects of self require validation or recognition. Cultivating relationships that honor authenticity rather than performance is also crucial. Surround yourself with people who accept you as you are, not as a curated projection. It is important to acknowledge that the journey toward authentic identity is neither simple nor linear. It requires confronting fears, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of insignificance. Many people resist authenticity because it is uncomfortable. It demands vulnerability, self-examination, and the willingness to accept oneself without disguise. Yet, paradoxically, it is in this discomfort that growth occurs. The more we align with our internal truth, the more resilient, coherent, and emotionally grounded we become. And there is profound beauty in this struggle. The act of navigating the tension between performed and authentic self deepens our understanding of human nature. It reveals the subtle pressures that shape our behaviors, illuminates the roots of anxiety, and uncovers the profound human need for coherence and belonging. Identity, once reclaimed from performance, becomes a source of freedom. It is not defined by external metrics, by likes, or by applause, but by the alignment of thought, feeling, and action within ourselves. So, as you reflect on your own identity, ask yourself, who are you when no one is looking? What parts of you exist purely for yourself, and what parts exist for others? Which actions, emotions, and choices are performed, and which are authentic? And most importantly, what would it mean to live fully as the self that exists quietly, unobserved, yet fully present in the world? In exploring these questions, we begin to pierce the illusion. We begin to reclaim agency over our identity. We begin to inhabit our lives not as a performance for the external gaze, but as a reflection of internal truth. And in doing so, we cultivate a freedom that is rare in the modern world. The freedom to exist as ourselves, fully and without apology. Have you ever truly been alone? Not in the sense of being physically isolated, but in the sense of inhabiting your own consciousness fully, without distraction or expectation. In our modern age, solitude is both rare and misunderstood. We are surrounded by devices, notifications, and the incessant hum of connection. Yet paradoxically, we are often disconnected from ourselves. To sit quietly, to listen to the rhythm of your own thoughts, to feel your emotions without attempting to perform or explain, is an act of courage, an act of presence, and an act of self-reclamation. Solitude is not emptiness. It is not withdrawal from the world. It is a different form of engagement, one that privileges depth over display. In solitude, we encounter the full spectrum of our inner life: joy, fear, longing, regret, hope, and doubt. We confront the subtle contradictions within ourselves, the patterns that shape our behavior, the unspoken desires that guide our choices. To inhabit this space requires discipline, awareness, and patience, yet the rewards are profound. Emotional depth, clarity of thought, and self-understanding flourish in the quiet.